Maybe that's why you were out having your coffee for so long, because you got scared of the word compliance on the screen in HMOs, and you thought, oh no, so it took a bit longer. So it's the first time I've met Alice, actually, but I was recommended to Alice by someone else, highly regarded as someone who could speak to us from a different perspective on compliance and fire, which are two of the probably most important things in HMO investing. And you've got, I won't spoil all the background, but you've got a little bit of a unique background, not the same as sort of like the traditional route of a property investor entering the HMO space. So hope you all enjoy, and I'll hand over to Alison.
Hello everyone.
Let's give her a round of applause, everyone.
I just had a little bit of a nightmare on the break. I squirted soap all the way down me, so I'm now soaking wet. I'm not sweaty, just so you know. So I'm Alice. I have a company called the Shared Homes Company, which is predominantly HMO management, actually. We started about 2.5 years ago. We've got 250 rooms, so it's going pretty well. High end. It tends to be all en suite HMOs down in the South Coast in Portsmouth. I've also got another company called Hampshire Property Consultants. That's just me, myself and I, giving compliance advice generally. So the fun bit, my background, I used to work for the enemy. I used to work for Portsmouth City Council. So everyone goes, boom, throws tomatoes at me. I used to. Yeah. You give me brown envelopes, yeah. No. So I worked... It does work in some cases, apparently, so I've heard. So I worked for Portsmouth City Council for 11 years. My sentence ended in 2020, just before COVID. I was a housing standards officer, HMO licensing officer, enforcement officer, and I headed up a team of additional licensing, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to introduce a sponsor of the channel. Trinity Finance is a directly authorised FCA-regulated mortgage brokerage. Founded in 2015 with over 30 mortgage brokers, we're really well placed to help you with all your property finance needs. Starting with first-time buyers and those moving home, we also help people remortgaging residential and buy-to-let property. Alongside that, we specialise in ground-up development, commercial lending, HMO funding, mezzanine, auction, and also your traditional buy-to-let. If that's of interest, get in contact with us via email at info@trinityfinance.co.uk, or you can give us a ring on 01322 907 000, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Of the small HMOs, I lasted a year, and I was like, sod this, had babies, milked the maternity, and then left as soon as I went back from my second kid. It did teach me a lot. I've got a master's out of it, and I've got lots of letters and all that sort of stuff. So it was good. And I'll give you some little tips of how to deal with officers going through. So that's my background. I'm a trained fire risk assessor, HHSRS assessor, and I do give defence advice as well. So if anybody who's new to it is worried, be worried, to be honest. I don't want to put people off. But these authorities are gunning. They want money. So when the CPNs came in, which I'll touch on, that money goes into their pot and into their back pocket. So they are encouraging officers to serve notices and fines. So hopefully I don't put you off too much. This is some of the legislation. Somebody told me there's 177 pieces of legislation that surround HMOs. I haven't counted because I'm not that sad, but these are the main ones. HMOs, the Housing Act, is where it all came from. And then these are some others that I'll touch on. This is really, really important. The management of houses and multiple occupation. Nobody knows about it, but they can fine you if you breach any of the conditions in it. So I'll talk about that as well. So that's the boring stuff. Does everybody actually know what a HMO is? I hope so. Does anyone want to tell? Oh, I shouldn't put it. Everyone says it's 3 unrelated people. No, it's not. It's 2 households, 3 people. So a common mistake I see is a couple move into a 2-bed flat. Oh, we're a bit skint. Can we rent the 3rd room out, the 2nd room out? Landlord goes, yeah, of course you can. That's created a HMO because the couple are a household, whether they're married or not, because they're cohabiting, and the 3rd person. So 2 households, 3 people. That does catch people out. So just make sure you're aware of that. In some areas, they do now require a license, and you could get fined if you haven't got a license. So it's just it's not three unrelated people that everybody says on Facebook. So just bear that in mind. I think I'm really bad at names, so the guy that talked previously, I'm really sorry, but he did mention this. The law changed in 2018. It's not about how many stories a house is anymore. It's about how many people. So if you've got a flat on 1 story and it's a 5-bed, which is a bit rare, that will need a licence. Anywhere in the country. Section 257, the HMOs, this is catching people out as well. So Section 257 is just the section of the Housing Act. And they are buildings that have been converted into self-contained flats. So there's no element of sharing. But because of the time that they were built, it's a bit of a grey area and it's a bit confusing, but because of the time that they were built, and if they don't comply with these regulations, when the building regs changed in 1992, and you haven't got a building control certificate to prove it, it is classified as a HMO still. In Portsmouth, they're licensable. There's loads of them. There's streets like this in Pompey that would have been houses at one point and converted in, usually in the 70s and the 80s when that was like the strategy and the viable model. No shared amenities. And it doesn't matter about how many people, it's about the time that it was built. So just bear that in mind as well. I've got a lovely little brochure that I wrote. If anybody'd like it, I can send it over to you. So licensing of HMOs, can I do this thing? Ooh. Oh no, it's not working very well. So there's different categories of licensing. Additional licensing is any HMO in a designated area. So not all authorities have additional licensing schemes. Some of them have it, then they don't have it, and they bring it back again because they have to consult before they bring it back. It's not a continuous scheme. It's usually 5 years. Portsmouth, I did it in 2013, and then they've just brought it back in 2023. So there was a gap in the middle. This has caught loads of people out. I spoke to a poor woman last week. She bought a 4-bed HMO that she didn't realise had already been reduced occupancy through the courts. So the courts have said, no, it's not a 5-bed, it has to be a 4-bed. Agent said, yeah, you can make it 5-bed, you know, you can do this, that and the other. She didn't do her due diligence. Council went round and went, you absolutely can't make this a 5-bed, we've already won at court. She then didn't realise that there was a big banner on the bottom of the email that said this new licensing scheme's coming on the 1st of September. She didn't read it or didn't see it. So because it was a 4-bed, it fell under their new additional licensing scheme. She's had £6.5 grand fine. So just be careful. She's brand new to it. It's her first HMO. So again, agents, high street agents don't really understand HMOs. Some of them do, but I spend a lot of time training them and helping them get out of the shit when they've got a massive fine. So just be careful if you're using agents. Make sure you ask them questions about HMOs and that they've got portfolios. Selective licensing, this is coming. This is going to get us all. They're going to do it all around the country, I reckon, eventually. So this is every rented property. So they'll go, an area, Borough of London, boom. There's loads of them in London already, I'm sure people already know. This means every property, not just HMOs, will require a licence. Again, you get massive fines. Don't confuse it with planning. So many people say, oh, I've got C4 licence. It's not a thing. There's no such thing as a C4 licence. It's C4 planning or sui gen, as you were saying earlier. And then you need a HMO licence as well. This is the bit that really puts people off. Okay, the fines are massive. You only usually see £30,000 if you keep offending, because it is an offence. It's a criminal offence. You will get a record for it if you don't get a licence or you breach any of the conditions on the licence. So read the licence as well. So not only can they charge you up to £30,000, they can serve it on both you, if you're the licence holder, and the agent. They can revoke your licence and saying that you're not fit and proper, so you need to find somebody else to be your licence holder. They can take over the management order. This is brilliant. Portsmouth City Council did this on a really well-known rogue landlord in Portsmouth. Within about 2 weeks, they were like, shit, it's well hard to manage HMOs, isn't it? And then they came up with some plan to give them back to him because they just couldn't cope with it because they were really high-risk tenants and, nightmares, people being murdered in them and stuff like that. So the council were like, actually, this wasn't a good idea. I've always been a HMO landlord myself as well, the whole time working there. So, of course, there's me all smug going, told you it was hard. So, yeah. Bit of a conflict of interest. I don't think I was ever meant to stay there forever. And then this one, there's now like the companies that used to do the PPI, whatever it was called, they're now going around saying to tenants, you can get your rent back. You can get your rent back. And so are the councils. Portsmouth are knocking on students' doors saying, how many of you live here? What's your names? Are you related? This hasn't got a licence. You can get your rent back from your landlord. So, if you've been 2 years with no licence, quite a lot of rent. So they can claim and get it back. And then you could go on the rogue landlord database. It's quite a growing one in London. Or they could ban you completely. So, I mean, I've never really seen that happen. I've never seen anybody banned. I have seen interim management orders, but like 1 in 17 years. So that's the worst case scenario. But the fines, they're just issuing them. They're going out because, again, it's going in their back pocket. So just be really, really careful. People get caught out with this as well. I know somebody that bought a HMO and he thought, oh, I'll just kind of let the licence lapse. Because over the summer months, I'm going to empty it. It's student property. I'm going to make it a big, beautiful HMO. So he didn't apply for a licence in the last 2 months of the student's contract because he thought, oh, I'll get away with it. The bloody house set on fire. So he got away with it because it was back in my day and he got a slap on the wrist and a right bollocking. But yeah, just apply for one. If you can't apply for one, or there's that period in that situation, you can go for something called a temporary exemption notice. So that gives you 3 months of you don't need to apply, but you need to prove to the council that you're taking it out of the licensable status, i.e. evicting the tenants. Okay, then it can be extended another 3 months. So it's a good tool to use, especially all the landlords I'm dealing with at the moment are faced with a fine and they're like, get me out of this sector altogether. I'm saying we'll apply for a temporary exemption because you didn't have a licence anyway and get the tenants out in the meantime. You can ask questions at any point as well.
One of my friends did this and got him into serious trouble because there is planning as well, right? Mm-hmm. So planning, when they remove the PD right for planning, they remove C3 to C4. They never removed the planning PD from C4 to C3. So the moment your house is not an HMO, for example, you have 6 people living in this house, and then you want to do something, the people move out, there's 1 person living there or 0%. It goes back to C3.
I've got case law against that. I've got, successful case law.
Once my friend got caught in that, and especially he applied for this, the council said, I even have evidence. There was not a C4 for a period of time, and then your house can't be a HMO anymore.
Yeah, well, I can't remember the wording that the judge used, but they said its intention was always to be a HMO, and they were just because you could say that in any student property. Yeah. 4 of them have moved out because they've gone back home for the summer, and there's 1 left. Does it still make it a C3? So there is case law to prove that wrong. So I think I've got it somewhere on my computer.
Yeah, that's very useful. But I just feel like
you've got to be careful. Yeah.
This way is banned, this way is not. So if you genuinely made it a family home or something, rented out to a family for a year, and then it's gone, it's not an HMO, you can't make it back anymore.
Portsmouth do C3, C4 dual use though. I don't know if you've got that in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's a sort of holiday let city. Yeah. All the landlords kicked off when it was introduced in 2011 and said, hang on, we like to rent them, the student flats out to families over the summer. That's not fair. So they've got a dual in Portsmouth, so you wouldn't lose it in that instance, but everywhere else, I think you would. So just be careful. Oh, have I gone the wrong way? Yeah, that's the mean bit. So the HMO management regs, I'm a real advocate of this because this is a set of regulations that basically puts the duty of everything onto the landlord of a HMO. I saw a post, I'm not going to mention any names, but from a really, really, really reputable person in the property sector, having a moan that his tenants wouldn't use the lawnmower. And I was like, oh, I don't want to say it. The students, they can't even use a lawnmower. But actually, under here, you've got a duty, was one of them, to maintain living space, I think it is, to keep the gardens clean and tidy. The landlord's got the duty. So I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut for once. But everything's your responsibility, apart from this one at the end. But no council has ever actually prosecuted a tenant for this. They can be prosecuted if they don't allow you to do this. So they've refused entry. So yeah, you've got all of these duties. So all the common areas, decorating. I've heard one council officer saying they've got to paint a wall from dark green to white because it's dark, dingy. I'm going to challenge that one, and hopefully I'll be successful. But yeah, weeds have got to be cleared, rubbish. It's not the tenant's problem, it's your problem. And you can get fined for every breach up to 30,000. So if they turn up to your HMO and the fire door's hanging off, whether the tenant did it or not, the fire door's hanging off its hinges, you could get a fine for that. So if you know you've got the council coming round, always go and do a pre-check. Go and do one of your property inspections and just make sure everything is fine. There is a bit of flexibility. Portsmouth aren't very aggressive with it, but there are local authorities that are really, they're like, this is a cash cow, you know. 7 breaches in one property, a couple of grand a breach, making a lot of money. And also this week, a case, one of my ex-colleagues, she asked, again, well-known landlord in Portsmouth, complete nightmare, just really arrogant and rude. Don't be arrogant and rude to councils. He did have his EICRs on 5 flats. She asked for them, and he, because he's so arrogant and rude, refused to send them to her. They'd just gone to tribunal. He's got 1,900 quid per flat fine, but he did have the EICRs. So he wasn't doing really anything wrong. Just because he didn't give them the certificates when they asked for it, he breached the electrical regulations. So, yeah, anyone needs EICRs? Whoop, whoop. We love an electrician. How long have I got?
You've got 20 minutes.
Oh, right, that's cool. Right, so I'll move on to fire safety. Since Grenfell, quite rightly, this is, they're hugely tightening up on this sector. This, ooh, LaCour's fire safety advice is well out of date, pretty useless, not in line with the building regs, but it is still the go-to document for residential and HMOs. Don't try and argue with your building control officer and use this document though, because that's building regs and they're different, okay? If you've got a really keen licensing officer that's gone out and started asking for stuff that you think, really, is that fair, is that right? This is the document you need to read. Like I say, it's a bit out of date, but it's still the Bible. And then there's this, if you're doing anything bigger, be careful of service accommodation if anybody does go down that route, because you're effectively, it's the hotel effectively, so rules still apply as well. So it is a legal requirement to have a written fire risk assessment. That changed in 2021. That assessment has to be completed by, at the moment, a competent person, and that is the definition, has sufficient training and experience or knowledge and other qualities to enable him to, or her to properly to assist in undertaking the preventive and protective measures. This will change, I reckon, in the next 12 months. All fire risk assessors will have to be on a register. If you're paying less than 150 quid for a fire risk assessment, you need to be asking them this question. And you need to be finding out, because you actually have a legal duty under the fire safety order to make sure the assessor you're instructing is competent. So you could get in the shit as well. So if your house goes up in flames, he isn't competent because he's thought, I don't know what he's thought. I'm not going to bring electricians into it, because an electrician did try and steal my FRAs, literally just changed my name to their name and sent it to the client. That is not competent. They're probably a competent electrician, but they need to prove training. Nobody ever asks me about my training. There's been 2 people that have asked me, actually, a really big student landlord and a really little landlord, actually, in Portsmouth. 2 people that have asked me to see certificates. I'm not even on this register yet. I go with the competency test, but I'm having to work towards it. So, yeah, that'll change. So what's probably going to happen is we're all going to go, yay, all as risk assessors, put our prices up and all the shit ones will go. So you need to make sure in the next couple of years that they are on that register. And yeah, further guidance in the sleeping accommodation, but that's probably going to go into when you're doing your really ultra big ones. If anybody's doing sort of 20, 25 plus, you need to look at that document as well. I know you said it's fire safety, but I'm going to touch on this as well, because this is compliance in general. This is the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, the HHSRS. This has been around since the Housing Act. It falls under the Housing Act, and this is a risk assessment-based evaluation tool to help local authorities identify and protect against potential risks and hazards to health and safety from deficiencies identified in dwellings. Has anyone had one in their HMOs? No one's had a HHSRS inspection? No one's had an inspection by the council? Yeah. Yeah, you have. Yeah, I was going to say, because if you've got licensed HMOs, they have to do one in 5 years. So if they haven't, you can get your money back, some of your money back, technically. That's a little trick of the trade. They have to do, so councils cannot make money from these schemes, from these licensing schemes. Not supposed to. I never had any involvement in the budget. If they don't do a full HHSRS inspection under this, which I'll explain, it's got 29 hazards, you can technically apply, they will not tell you, you can technically apply for a refund because they're making money from your licence. The whole purpose of licensing is for them to come bloody inspect them and make sure they're safe. You know, if they're not doing it, then what's the point? Not when they come around initially with the floor plans and measure and make sure. That's called a verification inspection. It's a full HHSRS inspection, okay? And on this point, again, 29 hazards, most common are excess cold, heating problems, damp and mould, and fire. Fire is obviously a really big one, and this is where they'll come along and say, oh, the gaps in your doors are bigger than 4 mil and all that sort of stuff. Failure to complete works, they can take enforcement action. They can serve you with a notice. It's a little bit different to the straight fines you see for licensing breaches. They'd usually go, here's an improvement notice, do this work, and then that'll be the end of it, but they will charge you an admin charge for the notice. If you then don't comply with that, then you're looking at a big hefty fine again. Challenge them on this. Honest to God, some of the stuff that I see that comes from the back of these HHSRS inspections is just completely ludicrous. If you don't agree with it, don't be rude, don't be obnoxious, because they will screw you if they want to. They can, even if they aren't successful at tribunal, they'll bloody take you all the way through it and all that process if you're rude to them. I've seen it happen before. So just politely push back and say, please, can I see your justifications? It's a very complex tool. I went on a 3-day training course. Time I'm never going to get back. But it is, and it takes, do you know what, the training course means nothing. You've got to put it into practice. And again, I've been doing them for 17 years. They are changing this as well. But I don't think it's going to be in the favour of landlords. There's a lot of work being done on minimum space standards in Leeds. I don't know why Leeds, they picked Leeds. They're doing a lot of sort of trials on space standards. I mean, I've got a little HMO, 5-bed. I used to live in it as a student myself. And I've got a little pokey room at the top, which quite a lot of people have, a box room, but it's 7.5 metres squared. So it meets the legal minimum, which is 6.51. I think by next year, that room's not going to be big enough. That's what I think. I've not got a crystal ball, but I think they're really going to tighten up on space standards. What you'll probably find is the planning requirements are higher than licensing. Do you find that? 10 metres?
You know, when I said, carrot and stick, I always try to work with the council as much as possible. For example, with Merton, head of planning, I'm going out for dinner with him.
Oh, nice.
I also attend the planning committee. And even when I don't have a case, and then they ask me why I'm here. And I said, I'm here to learn from you, councillors, say what the council needs and stuff. I only fight back when they don't play ball. Like Saturday, they actually did something illegal. That's why they were so afraid when I put in the Freedom of Information Act request. And also I want to say planning officers are like it's different case by case, but if you generalize it, planning officers are quite difficult to deal with sometimes. But HMO officers, I find they are so friendly, so nice. They genuinely just want to improve the standard of HMO. And also all of the requirements they give to you are quite reasonable. You should do it anyway. And also my HMO officer in every council actually helped me with planning. So what I do is before I even do a property, right, when my architect is designing a property, I always send the floor plan and the spec and stuff to the HMO officer. And they always reply. They will reply to say, I'm happy with everything, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, such high standard HMO. You saw the photos of my projects, right? And then I will PDF it. So later, when I do the full planning application, I submit it because the HMO officer actually is a consultee. And the HMO standard, amenity standard, is an important part of the planning consideration. So I have the seal of approval from the HMO officer, and she said something nice about me. I PDF it, I submit it together with my maybe 6 to 9% HMO full planning, and actually helps me getting the planning application.
That's lovely, but they're not all like that. I mean, I'm dealing with a case in the Wirral at the moment. He's got building reg sign-off, he's got planning. Licensing officers come along, don't like the shape of this room. 10 metres squared, I don't like the shape of it. Well, she liked the shape of it. She took it back to her manager and he didn't like the shape of it. So that's very early stages, but I couldn't believe it. Brand new, all en suite, beautiful, been on all the courses. But it is a bit of an odd layout. They want him to take the wall out in between and make it back to a 5-bed completely doesn't stack up.
Even before we even submit planning, we always get a self-approval. So actually, I've never had a difficult HMO officer, just my experience.
Yeah.
But if there is one, they don't like it, we change it before we even submit it to planning.
Yeah, you've got to play the game almost. But yeah, at the same time, if it does seem unreasonable, then just politely push back, and you can go all the way to enforcement. So the HHSRS, that's. Does anybody think that's a hazard? That's first floor. There was some steps there going down. So identifying hazards under the HHSRS, common sense should prevail in most cases. That's a hazard. It's identifying a deficiency, a failure of an element to meet the ideal. That doesn't meet the ideal, does it? Because there's no steps. You open that door and fall straight out. Then you look at the likelihood of an occurrence, so the probability of an occurrence that could cause harm over the 12-month period. This takes into consideration the vulnerable age group. So in that scenario, it's probably little people. I've had little people, and they would fall out of that if they weren't being watched by an adult. It's quite clear that that's a significant hazard. Then they put it all into their system. So is it going to cause death? Probably. Well, it could be if it was a few more stories up. Or is it going to break their finger or their leg? Then there's all these different categories. They put it all into their little system, and then it brings out whether it's a Category 1 or a Category 2 hazard. A Category 1 hazard, they have a legal duty to remove it from the property or reduce it to an acceptable level. So that's usually like lack of heating at all, lack of water, really quite, everybody would probably agree is a hazard. Not because there's one radiator missing in a bathroom or something like that. So they shouldn't be manipulating the scoring, which they like to do, to get a Cat 1. So they have to do something about it. Cat 2s, they've got jurisdiction. But that would probably come out as a Cat 1. I'm trying to think what could be a Cat 2. Something like, I don't know, the window doesn't open or something like that. Just doesn't open, but it does in other areas of the building. Just smaller hazards. So then you've got to reduce or remove it. Things to watch out, space standards, I've already covered that. It's that assessment's under review. It's been under review for, I think, since COVID. I did a stakeholder engagement thing, so they're not doing anything quickly, like the government love to not do anything quickly. I think there's still buildings with that cladding on it from Grenfell, quite a lot of them. Again, fire risk assessments, they're a legal requirement. Again, they're now part of the tick box exercise for licensing. They never used to be. That's why people thought they didn't have to have one. But if you don't have one, you're not only breaching your licence conditions, you're breaching the fire safety order as well. Special conditions, so when you get your lovely licence, everyone looks at it and goes, oh, that's got the right amount of occupancy, and then they chuck it in a cupboard or they stick it on display in the HMO like you're supposed to do under the management regs. Nobody actually really reads the 30 conditions attached. They're really, really important because if you don't comply with them, you're committing an offence. Portsmouth have slipped one in there that says you should reference every tenant. Why? Why should I have to reference every tenant? I used to take students. What am I referencing? They've got no credit. They've got no landlord reference. And their parents are paying for their rent anyway. So why would I reference them? But Portsmouth have actually put in a condition that says that you have to. So I was breaking the law. That's been challenged at the moment. The results have come, the decisions come back, but I don't know if it's successful. But it's an unreasonable licence condition. So just make sure you are complying with them, or you push back and challenge them if you don't agree. And then they put special conditions in. This is where they say, oh, the house is suitable for 5, but at the bottom, well, it's not. Can you reduce it to 4 in the next year? Loads of people don't read, and it's always at the bottom of the document, like in small print. Loads of people don't read it, then a year on they go, oh my God, I've gone to refinance, and my lender's picked up that I should have reduced the occupancy. What do I do? There are still ways around it. You can still request to vary the licence back to what it was and then challenge it through that route, but just read it. It's a legal document and you're committing an offence if you don't comply with it. So it's hugely important. How far have I got? Not long. Compliance checklist, I'm sure we can share these slides if anybody wants them. So gas safety record, you have to have that in every property. Portable appliancing and testing, only if they're over 12 months old. If it's a brand new appliance, push back if they're asking for one because it doesn't need one, because it's brand new. Fire risk assessment. A lot of fire risk assessments say that they only last for 1 year. The code of practice, there's no legal definition, but the code of practice that I follow, which is called PASS, which the government introduced and then withdrew, because there was obviously an error in it, something to do with Grenfell. I say 4 years, but they have to be reviewed every year. It's going to be with 5 minutes. So a lot of risk assessors say it's got to be done every year and charge you the full price every year. So just be cautious of that as well. You'll need, if you need emergency lighting, you'll need a servicing certificate every year by a competent electrician or emergency lighting engineer. You'll also need a fire alarm detection system. If you've got a grade A system, which is a panel, is there one? It's a bit worrying. There should be one somewhere, like a panel, with lots of flashy lights on it, and it says fire when there's a fire or there's been a fire. They need to be checked every 6 months now. That changed, I think, in 2019. And then a grade D system, which just standalone detectors that link in are recommended every year. I've actually been to court over that as well. These 2 question marks, you do need them. You do need them, and lenders are picking it up now. You only need an asbestos report if you've got asbestos in your house. Well, how do you know if you've got asbestos in your house without having a report? So you do need one. And a Legionella report, you do need one too. It's law, but the councils don't ask for it, so nobody tends to do them. But you do actually legally need them. They don't fall under the Housing Act, they fall under different legislation, but it's just to be cautious. Energy performance certificates. Actually, legally, you don't need a EPC for a HMO, but we won't go into that because that's a whole different matter, and you do for some reason or not. You need your planning, which obviously the other guys have talked about. I've put it twice. Oh, sorry. Obviously, I was going to put the ones at the bottom. But there you go. That's a tick list. And you need to comply with the management regulations. I think that's it. Oh, no, the do's and don'ts. Don't assume because it's got a licence on it, it's compliant. I bought a HMO 2 years ago and I had to rip all the doors out because they were hollow, they weren't even fire doors. That manage several HMOs, ask them questions about fire safety. If they say, we're not responsible for fire safety, they are because they take the rent. They're responsible for everything, the management regulations as well, if they take the rent for you and fully manage. I don't believe in anything because I don't believe in the words hands-off investment. If you're buying property, you've still got a duty to insure it and make sure your agent are doing what you're paying them to do. You can also Google them. If you Google tribunal decisions and put the agent name in, you'll soon find out if they've got in trouble before. You can self-manage. I think it might be a bit of a dying market, self-management, with the new Renters' Rights Bill coming, but we'll find out. We won't touch on that now because that's a whole other presentation. Go on lots of training courses. There are lots of free ones as well. Yay! There are lots of very expensive, don't pay tens of thousands, you don't need to. You can come to this sort of stuff and you can find, and this sort of stuff, and you can find stuff online. NRLA, the big associations. Do your due diligence prior to offering. Search your area. Search whether there's been any enforcement on the property, which you can do. You can try and phone the council. And Brown knows them a little bit and say, oh, look, I'm buying this HMO. They usually go, no, we don't want to know until you bought it. But you can ask them the questions. Would this be compliant? Some of them will charge you for a consultancy service or speak to me, and I can tell you. They've all got on their website details of what licensing schemes they've got. Their HMO amenities document, which I rip apart usually, that's a guidance document. It's not law. Just because they've made up a figure and they want a 10-metre square room doesn't necessarily mean it has to be. A tribunal will always look at whether the space is usable. They don't care about the document that the council's introduced. It's a benchmark, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that size. But just do your due diligence. Use specialist consultants, architects, and budget for it. If you've not done it before, don't go in alone because you're gonna drown. Make sure you use specialists, and there's loads of them. People talking today, myself, there's loads around the country. It's an investment, I think. Any questions? Have we got time for questions?
Can we pass on them for now? Is that okay?
And I'm here all day.
What I'll do is I'll share Alice's contact details with everyone on email. And
feel free to add me on LinkedIn and
I'll
Facebook.
also pass the slides round to everyone. And if you've got a burning compliance fire question, then you can sit next to her at lunch and pick her brains.
Can't wait.
Just to keep on schedule. Thank you. Thank you so much. Amazing.
That's all right. Thank you.
How are we finding it? Has the heart rate gone up a little bit now you realise you've got to do Legionellas and all the rest of it? So